Good morning. Welcome to another joint session of the Health and Human Services Committee and Education and Culture Committee. Here with my colleague and co-chair, Councilmember Alvarez, and Councilmembers Sales. Councilmember Mink is attending virtually, and Councilmember Lukey. Really appreciate everyone that's here today. We have a couple of items. First, though, I want to, I think I got it right this time, that Ms. Yao, this is your, this is going to be your last one with us. So we're going to talk about the CIP and things related to our child care and our wellness centers and a whole range of topics. And Vivian Yao has been with the council how many years now?
18.
18 years, and has been working on these issues, I think, for most of that time, all that time. And certainly the 7 years I've been on the council, and I can say, and I'm sure Councilmember Alvarez will attest, we wouldn't have been able to do this work and understand it and have the depth of knowledge and care that you bring to the work. And without a doubt, I can say that Montgomery County and our students and our young children and families are better off because you served them. So just want to say thank you and acknowledge your service. And I know you're not, you're not leaving the area or anything, but you're just going to get some time and hopefully spend some time with family and friends, but just want to acknowledge her. So I think it's appropriate to give you a round of applause. Councilmember Alvarez.
Yeah, so I said my thoughts, which were personal last time. So I'll say this: our civil servants across the country are critical and vital to our economy, to our community, to our health, and there is no better example than Vivian here at the local level of somebody who has dedicated their professional career to ensuring the betterment of our entire community and society. And at a time where that work is being demeaned and discredited in ways that are malicious and, quite frankly, evil and incorrect, Vivian reminds us of how important it is for us to support public servants such as her, particularly during this time. So at least we here in Montgomery County need to always uplift and acknowledge that work and continue to support it and move it forward. But once again, Vivian, thank you for your dedication and commitment and your help to me personally and professionally.
You're here. You're here. You want to say anything? You don't have to. Mm-hmm.
We just want you to send pictures.
Yeah,
Perfect.
that's right.
Yeah. Perfect. Send pictures.
Live through you.
Yes.
So we have Ms. Hernandez Rodriguez. The beautiful thing is that we're going to be in great hands. And previously under your tutelage, left for a little while to go serve in the federal government, and now back with us. So thank you. We're glad. So I'm going to turn it over to you all. We're going to go through the child care renovation projects, the CIP, and then we're going to talk. There is an update in the packet, which I really appreciate you all providing, about the wellness centers and mental health and positive youth development spaces. Though there's no amendment before us today, if there are questions about those items, we can certainly take them up. We'll also come back to them in budget, as we always do. So I'll kick it over to our team, to Ms. Yao, the aforementioned Ms. Yao.
Good morning. We can invite the participants to come up to the table at this point. That includes Mr. Dice.
Mr. Dice, Mr. Asant, OMB, MCPS representative, if you're here, come on up. And anyone from HHS, Dr. Bridgers is here. Mr. Hodge, there we go.
Okay, so the Joint Committee is going to be reviewing projects recommended by the executive for amendment relating to child care renovation. Those three projects are ADA remediation, playgrounds, and child care facility replacement. Each of these umbrella projects provides for the design and construction of multiple projects that will take place sequentially through the 6-year CIP period and beyond. There are tables that start on page 2 of your packet, 2 tables for each project that describe the first one, recommended amended expenditures for each umbrella project by fiscal year, and the second one would be the approved individual project schedules and total costs. So walking through that, the first one is for childcare renovations, ADA remediation, and the recommended project total in the amendment is $8,248,000. The 6-year total, however, is $6.801 million. That is a $112,000 increase to total project costs, but a $1.335 million decrease to the 6-year total. The recommended funding source is GEO bonds, and the requested fiscal year 26 appropriation is actually a negative $941,000. You'll see this trend for these, all 3 projects essentially is spreading out the costs going into the beyond 6-year period with generally increased costs for the project total, but a decreased cost for the 6-year period. So the next project is the child care renovations playgrounds amendment. The recommended total for the project is $9.019 million. The 6-year total is $7.106 million. That amounts to a $550,000 increase to the total project costs, but a $2.468 million decrease to the 6-year period. Again, that's recommended funding sources GEO bonds, and the requested fiscal year 26 appropriation is $126,000. The individual costs are then in the second table following that. And then on page 4 of your packet, we move on to the child care facility replacement amendment. The total project cost recommended for that project is $30.121 million. The 6-year total is $19.815 million. The cost to the cost change to the total project is a $7.35 million increase. The cost change for the 6-year period, though, is a $2.956 million decrease. So the executive has explained that the implementation timelines have just shifted based on recent experience and presumably affordability issues as well. For the most part, the recommended amended costs per project involve a 10%, a less than 10% change. In most cases, cost reductions, but there are a few that are increases as well. But there are a few to note that don't fall into that category, and council staff has highlighted them on pages 4 and 5 of your packet. The first one is in child care renovations, ADA remediation. The Upcounty Regional Services Center project, which has been completed, came out to be $935,440. That's a 77% decrease to what was projected. In child care renovations playgrounds, the Woodland Elementary School project was completed at $596,011. That was an 87% decrease to the projected amount. And the Lone Oak project, which is targeted for completion or work in fiscal year 31, is projected at $820,087, which is a 53% decrease. For child care renovations, child care facility replacement, Woodland, there's a typo there, is completed at $2.383 million, or a 75% decrease. The largest, most significant project, though, change is related to the MLK Junior Recreation Park project, which is targeted for fiscal year 27. It's a $7.452 million it's projected at $7.452 million, but it's a 295% increase. So the executive explains that this increase results from an expanded scope related to stormwater management and electrical work. These kinds of exponential increases are not anticipated for the playgrounds and the ADA remediation projects, but because of the scope of replacing facilities, I guess we don't really know necessarily at this time how that's going to impact future projects. Executive says that they will complete a comprehensive reevaluation of cost estimates across all projects that will be performed for the full fiscal year 27 to 32 CIP, and that availability of funding will be the main driver of the implementation schedule. So at that, the committee may want a little bit more information about the projects that deviate significantly from the approved project estimates. And if the committee feels that moving forward more expediently with childcare renovation projects in fiscal year 26, like the ADA remediation project, is a priority, then it may want to seek additional information about what work can happen in 26 and potentially add it subject to available funding at reconciliation.
Thank you, Ms. Yao. I think that's a great place to start. So I don't know who wants to start as far as just explaining some of the deviations and the pushback, 1 or 2 years, and the why there. And Mr. Dice, maybe we start with that.
I'll give it a shot.
Okay.
David Dice, Director, Montgomery County Department of General Services. Again, the costs that you see projected out over in these lengthy tables are exactly that, projections over the course of many years. And I can't tell you what the costs are going to be 2 years from now, much less 10 years from now. So these are a lump sum distributed proportionally over a large chart. So there is going to be deviation. The ADA and the playground projects, as Ms. Yao pointed out, pretty straightforward stuff, and we can knock those out without much difficulty. And that's why that's what we have been doing. The facility replacements are significantly different, and just as we've done with libraries and are about to do with recreation centers. As you know, we prefer to go in and do a forensic analysis of the structures so that we have an idea of what exactly we're going to run into, so that I can provide you with a realistic cost estimate. We have some amounts of money that one project alone could suck up the majority of, depending on what we run into. So some of those deviations, for instance, the case of Up County Regional Services Center, the work was very straightforward. It was a playground to do. There was an original estimate as part of that distribution across the table of large projects. We went in, did the work, and it came in considerably less expensive. Woodland Elementary School facility, that work was completed. It was a wonderful facility. I don't know if you've seen it or not. You should visit it. It's an amazing facility. The playground is representative of the work that we're doing at all the playgrounds around the area, and that job went swimmingly well, and representative of a project that's relatively new construction and little to run into that required major work. Some of the other projects, MLK, will be more challenging because of the nature of that facility. We know that facility. We've been in that facility with other projects, and so we would expect that to be more expensive. So each one of the child care facility replacements is going to be highly individualized and unpredictable, particularly as we get into each individual site. Once again, pretty confident about the playgrounds and the ADA work. It's pretty common through facilities that we do all across the county's portfolio, but the renovations to child care facilities are a vast unknown. I'd love to be more specific, but that's a challenge.
Dr. Bridges?
Good morning, EC Chair Jawando, HHS Chair Albanosa, and Joint Committee members. I want to back up and thank Ms. Yao for all the support that she gave and continues to give to HHS during these council sessions. There are 3 points that I want to just emphasize and that OMB and DGS really looked into with HHS's input and collaboration was the reevaluation of the cost estimate. So therefore, you have the increases and the decreases, the equitable response for all to make these spaces ADA compliant. And then lastly, knowing that there are lean budget times ahead, to look at the cost affordability. And so when we look at the CIP over time, these are some of the challenges and input that HHS provided to DGS and OMB, and I just wanted to go on the record to thank them for their assessment.
I appreciate that. Do you have any questions on this? Councilmember Sales?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Dr. Bridgers and Mr. Dice. Who made the original cost estimates for some of these projects, specifically the MLK project? Just wanting to understand the cost increase.
Sure. Specifically for MLK is good morning, Greg Ossen,
Good
Department
morning.
of General Services. As Director Dice has indicated, these all of these child care renovation projects started out as an umbrella project. They were subsequently broken out into these three categories: the ADA renovations, the playgrounds, and then the full facility replacements. And MLK falls into that full facility replacement. So that original umbrella project, level of effort project, was nearly $40 million in projected costs. And then that was subsequently broken into three CIPs, which are then three separate umbrellas. So there's really about 22 or 24 different sub-projects within that original LOE. And a lot of those costs were carried forward. And as Director Dice has mentioned, we were allotted nearly $40 million. It was spread over all three of those CIPs and then further spread over the individual projects. So the original allotment that was projected for MLK was only a few $1,000,000. As it turns out, the project, and that is MLK, to differentiate that from Woodland, for example. Woodland was a elementary school being rebuilt, incorporated a small addition to that building for about $3 million plus the playground, and that was that project. MCPS delivered that in concert with the elementary school construction. MLK, on the other hand, is on a Parks Department campus. We need to, for continuity of operations, we need to allow the existing facility to continue to operate while we build a new facility next door. It's on a parcel of land that is constrained both from environmental and current infrastructure issues. And then, of course, as Director Dice has mentioned, the stormwater management and the infrastructure, utility infrastructure necessary to, all of that went into what is now a $7 to $8 million project, tear down, rebuild. And that is what's gotten infinitely more complicated than we originally anticipated nearly 10 years ago when we started developing this entire program. So that's the real differentiator there.
Let me just add to that. Thank you, Mr. Ossen. This is going to happen again. You're going to see numbers vary on this again as we come back and give you updated reports on these projects. I'm just going to promise you MLK is a great example. It wasn't a renovation, became new construction. That takes on a whole different tone because it's building something as opposed to renovating something that's existing. These numbers, they seem precise. I realize you look at this table and I see 3,840,321, not 22, $21. These are all distributed numbers using square footage or other ratios. They will change as we go. You've got a large amount of money, and we're just giving you representative examples of how this will work, but the cards on the deck are going to shuffle as we go ahead. And once we know more, we'll update you and let you know how we're going. But it's a larger amount of money. As Greg pointed out, overall it's a level of effort project, which gives me a lump sum to spend, and I spend it as I go. And as I just mentioned in my previous comments, one project can skew the course, but we'll know that in advance, and we'll keep you updated.
And so is the project more expensive because it was delayed or just because of normal wear and tear?
Well, no, it was the nature of this particular project. is the fact that a new facility needed to be constructed on that site, but not, the existing facility was inadequate for the use. So but whenever you get into site work, things are going to get considerably more expensive. So each one of these sites has its different nuances to them. Again, some are new. We've looked at putting in prefab structures as well. Lifting, some of them would just be too difficult to lift in over other things to set. So new construction, as in this case, was the best option. So we look at each one of these as we encounter them. We generally know what to expect, but won't know until we get to the level of detail.
Okay, thank you.
Can we just talk about the child care renovation? It was raised by Ms. Yao, just what this will do to the timeline of potential the renovation. So, for example, we're moving the 25 money. Previously, it was approved at 3.5, and now you're moving that down and pushing a lot of it out of the 6-year. Could you just give us a sense of, or maybe the HHS, child care, whoever, what's that going to mean for when those get completed?
Your question is how delays will affect cost estimates?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say that this is the biennial year, so we were planning to do a comprehensive reassessment in the full CIP. How the cost estimates are scheduled is trying to keep things intact with the projects that are scheduled in the upcoming year. So mitigating some of those impacts that we're likely to see nearer in time, and then we'll reevaluate the further we get down the road. Like Director Dice said, the cost estimates could vary. It's a 6-year period, but each project has its own nuances that could also affect cost estimates. So these are very much just projections at this time.
Right, and making the numbers work, but keeping the projects that are the closest to being worked on. Okay. Yep, go ahead.
If I can add one more thing. I've been asked a lot over the last few days about what tariffs are going to do. No one knows. The Engineering News Record just issued an article earlier today, I believe it was, or late yesterday, that things like lumber prices could go up 25%. I don't know what it's going to do to costs. It will raise costs. My biggest concern, in addition to costs, is material availability and delay. So what we were just starting to recover from COVID and the effects of that is going to be a resurgence. So I'm not going to be able to peg a number. People are always asking, can you tell us, is it 17.3% or 25.2%? I don't know. It's out of my control, but we need to be prepared for the fact that these numbers are going to go up. So just wanted to go on record with that right now, so no one's surprised.
Yep, one of the many unfortunate things we're dealing with. I think Councilmember Mink has a question.
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to circle back to MLK for a moment, and apologies if this was already made clear to others. So it shifted from renovation to new construction because of stormwater management issues, or it's, if you could just explain why that shift happened.
Certainly, again, Greg Austin, Department of General Services. The original level of effort project contemplated renovations of all of these spaces. In the case of the portfolio that is now referred to as facility replacement, effectively either a tear down, rebuild, or rebuild in place, those were facilities that we were unable to renovate and still meet the required state regulations as it relates to child care. So when we looked at MLK, for example, we determined after lengthy analysis and investigation in the actual facility that it would be impossible or infeasible to renovate the facility and still meet the requirements under the state regulations for child care and what that facility needed to be. So the less expensive, I realize that's a a bit of a misnomer, but the less expensive option or the better option was to just simply replace it in kind on that site. And so as Director Dice has noted, that turns a renovation into new construction, and that with it opens up the door to things like stormwater management, utility, other infrastructure that you typically wouldn't deal with in a simple renovation. So that's really the base, and of course we have a lot more detail if we could follow up if needed.
Thank you.
All right. Yes, Michelle. Yes, Michelle.
Just had a quick question about the ADA remediation. How many of those projects are going to be delayed? I'm just thinking about, I know you mentioned the Up County project was completed pretty easily. It looks like it was even less than the original estimates. I'm just wondering what the foot traffic is at any of the delayed sites.
Thank you. It's a great question. These projects are pretty straightforward. We don't anticipate any delays. The only impact could be on affordability generally in the CIP, but we don't anticipate any delays either here or with the playgrounds.
Oh, perfect. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Just a quick comment. I know that I look at the numbers and I always go, the numbers for the later years aren't necessarily so real, right? I am a realist, and so I look at them as they're just there, but they're going to shift, and that's okay. And we need to all be mindful and expect that. Thank you for forecasting I know you don't have a magic 8 ball that's going to give you all the answers that everyone wants to know right now, as we're all struggling with analyzing an ever-changing landscape, but I appreciate, the detail, and I appreciate the choices that you all have to make in terms of feasibility, functionality, cost, and all of that has to go into one. So, it's great to be able to see we had cost savings in certain places. I appreciate why we had extra expenses with MLK. And so, we know we're going to have to do this dance for the foreseeable future. So thank you, and we'll be back.
Time will tell. All right, so Michelle, without objection, we'll accept the amendments. Yep.
So moving on to project updates. At the February 24th Joint Committee meeting on School-Based Wellness and Health Services, committee members requested an update on the capital expenditures for developing comprehensive high school wellness centers, as well as a delineation of which high schools have comprehensive wellness centers, which schools have bridge to wellness programs, et cetera. So on page 5 of your packet, we set out, responses to that request. High school wellness centers and expanded wellness services CIP project provides for the design and construction of 2 types of high school facilities. One is the comprehensive high school wellness center that provides health, mental health, social services, and family support, youth development services. And the other type is the bridge to wellness, mental health, and youth development services space. The comprehensive high school wellness centers can be built as either standalone projects or in conjunction with major school construction. And centers built in conjunction with major projects are typically bid as add-on projects and realize savings from being associated with those larger school projects. The Joint Committee has prioritized expansion of full high school wellness centers based on need consistent with racial equity and social justice principles rather than the timing of major school construction projects. Dedicated bridge to wellness, mental health, and youth development spaces are, as a matter of course, planned and constructed for high schools that are undergoing major school construction and are not prioritized for high school wellness centers with somatic health services. So on page 6, there are bullets that kind of describe where we are in terms of the status of which high schools have what and what is being planned in the CIP project. There are currently 6 high schools that have full wellness centers: Gaithersburg, Kennedy, Northwood, Seneca Valley, Watkins Mill, and Wheaton High Schools. Every other high school in the county has a Bridge to Wellness program currently. The approved fiscal year 25 to 30 CIP includes funding for 3 additional comprehensive wellness center facilities. Springbrook as a standalone project, which is programmed for fiscal year 26. Paint Branch, which is programmed beginning in fiscal year 28. And Woodward, to accommodate the Northwood students that are going to be there, is programmed beginning in fiscal year 26. The approved fiscal year 25 to 30 CIP includes funding for the mental health PYD space for Blake High School, which is programmed beginning in fiscal year 28, Magruder High School beginning in fiscal year 29, and then Crown High School beginning in fiscal year 25. The Joint Committee will have the opportunity to reassess the priority need of full high school wellness center projects next spring in the full fiscal year 27 to 32 CIP cycle.
Thank you, Ms. Yao, for that overview. Anything to add on from HHS or DGS side? You don't have? Yeah.
Yes.
Go ahead, Mark.
So just to say that the projects that we have in the CIP are all moving forward. We have Springbrook, which starts in FY26. We're working with MCPS. We'll have to do feasibility studies and start looking at what that looks like. As a standalone project, it's not with any other school construction that's happening at Springbrook, so this will end up being all by itself. Just to fix an issue in the CIP, I think. The Woodward is already open, and the Wellness Center is already running. Northwood students are already there this year. So it will continue in FY26 because the Northwood High School is being built. A Wellness Center will be built again as part of the construction, but MCPS is giving that to us for free because it was already existing in the original building. Crown, we had already gotten pretty far down the road on Crown for a wellness center. We are switching that now to, just to make things a little more complicated, a Connections to Wellness program. So Connections is kind of the enhanced bridge to wellness. So it has the PYD component that the bridge to wellness does not have. So like I said, we're trying to make things a little more complicated for you and trying to figure out which programs are all, but these are HHS programs, and we are now working with MCPS to alter the footprint a little bit to remove the somatic pieces of that construction, which is happening right now, and just making sure that we have the PYD and mental health services that are going to be in that school when it opens.
So Connections, go ahead, Dr. Bridges.
Just to add, this is definitely one space where we have taken strong consideration from the Health and Human Services standpoint to strengthen that connection, as Mr. Hodge talked about, looking at the racial equity and social justice space, looking at the delineation of where these CIP plan expansions are, and looking at not only the somatic care, but the mental care as well, and positive youth development. So this is an area that we really held close to look at how we can strengthen this area. And I also want to thank our MCPS partners who are in the audience this morning, but also who may be listening. This is where HHS and MCPS continues to build a strong partnership.
Really appreciate that. Yeah, I'll turn to Councilmember Alvarez first. I just have one quick question. Then I'll turn to him, and then Councilmember Lukey.
Thanks. Not a question, just 2 comments. One, expressing my appreciation. I know this required a lot of creative thoughts and creative strategies, because, working with existing footprints within schools, and, there's not a lot of extra space available for anything, let alone something as important as this. So I really want to express my appreciation to MCPS's team, both at the school as well as the administrative and capital level, because I'm happy to hear that we're making a great deal of progress. I guess just one thought, and this is, again, categorize this with this and a million other things that we're having to process and deal with over the next few years, but in terms of the semantic care, we had done an assessment and evaluation of what was available to students last year and the year before. That's all going to change. And we have to acknowledge that, and that's why it's even more important for us to have potential spaces available if and when we have to adjust programming to meet the prospective needs of students moving forward. The mental health needs are there. They're significant. They're across the board. But as the Medicaid reimbursements begin to diminish, I know we're all having the same conversations with our primary care coalition and our clinics that are on the ground who are already struggling to meet demand as it is. That's not going to get better. So we just have to continue to think creatively through all of this. And as I always try to do, I know Council Chair Jawando does, Council Vice President Jawando does as well, is channel our appreciation to Councilmember Navarro, who of course was spearheaded this effort several years ago, and I think she'd be happy to, I'm actually scheduled to connect with her soon. She'll be happy to hear about this progress, so thank you.
Absolutely. I was thinking about her as we were talking. Councilmember Lukey.
Thank you. I know we were all here last week and had a conversation, and Dr. Connolly Chester and I had previously worked on some things at the state, and it had been a long-standing challenge to get billing for Medicaid for therapeutic services that are provided at schools, and so I'm happy to hear that Maryland is making that progress. That certainly benefits the use of these spaces, and to Councilmember Albernaz's point, adaptability that we need to have in place moving forward for what we may be able to recoup versus what we may not in terms of the operational side of these spaces. But I also I appreciate that the update that these are all still moving ahead on schedule, especially with respect to Magruder High School, which is in my district, and then of course our Northeast Consortium schools, Springbrook, Paint Branch, and Blake, all of which serve my district and Councilmember Mink's district. And I'm very appreciative that they are close in time to one another in terms of coming online, because I think it's important, since that cluster of schools serves the same community, that they are able to be brought online contemporaneous with one another to the greatest extent possible. So thank you for that.
It's a really great point. Councilmember Mink.
Great, thank you. Also glad to see that these projects are still moving forward. I know it's not easy to keep everything going, and I appreciate it. We had talked some last year, I don't know if I recall all the details at the moment, but we talked last year some about what Chair Albornoz was referencing, I believe, in terms of access to care, especially for those who are uninsured, and other resources that students have and families have to receive somatic care. And I just wanted to circle back to that again as something to follow up on, maybe at another session in more detail. I think that that's a really, really important point. And, like I noted last year, just because there is maybe a clinic that is nearby that could provide care doesn't necessarily mean that those same students or families are going to go there, right? There's a huge benefit to having these options available in the schools. Our populations are also changing dramatically, even from year to year, and that's going to be, we're going to see, I'm sure, all kinds of changes in the next year or two and on down the line, given the dynamics at play here. I'm thinking about Blake High School, for example, where we have a huge immigrant population as well, a huge newcomer population. Things are just changing there to a dramatic degree, month by month, it seems like, and that's causing a lot of dynamics on the ground, obviously, in terms of, mental health and social interactions with the students, but also we can infer in terms of somatic needs also. And so, I'm of course aware that we don't have an unlimited budget, right? We're struggling to keep these projects moving forward as they are, and I know that's why, we are not currently planning to do full wellness centers at all high schools, because we want to make sure that these kids have something. At the same time, I just want to make sure that we have a thorough understanding of what the strategy is, and if there's ways that we can think about short-term service versus long-term, and what we really want those long-term goals to be, and if what we are doing is kind of relying on access outside the schools, then it would be great to dive in more deeply, maybe on the operating side, in terms of what we are doing to help make sure those connections are able to be made and are being made. Are there thoughts from from anyone on the panel in terms of some of those details there that you could speak to?
So, again, Mark Hodge, Chief Operating Officer, HHS. If you recall, when we were talking about this last year, you mentioned one of the options we have is to open up the wellness centers and the school-based health centers in elementary schools that we currently have, the 16 sites, to students from other schools who may need access to care. You're absolutely right. Opening up to them and having them actually show up are two different things. It is certainly an option we have. We'd also discussed the possibility of telehealth. Again, not necessarily the best way to provide care, but without other options, it is an option. Yes, and the landscape is changing. And so the conversation we had last year versus the conversation we may have at a future work session could potentially change everything. Because if students are not able to access or be eligible for medical assistance, that means they're uninsured. And where are they going to get care? Are they going to be eligible for Care for Kids, which would require them to go to another primary doctor that we contract with, or do we provide that in the schools? And so we did make, this is just off the cuff, so I'm not going to promise this, but it is an option, that we were able to install Bridge to Wellness programs in every high school, just using a classroom. It is possible for us to be able to do that from a somatic, you mentioned short-term versus long-term. From a short-term perspective, if we could get access to a space, we could provide that care in the meantime while we wait for a new administration at the federal level to reverse some of these things that would provide other access. So absolutely happy to work with the School Health Services team about how to provide more options for somatic care in our schools.
Yeah, I appreciate that, and hopefully we can follow up, with plenty of time before we do the full CIP to kind of go through the strategy and how you all are approaching that also. And given that, facilities-wise, we obviously, like you said, we need a lot less for a bridge program. If we can, I just want to make sure then if we're doing when we do large new construction projects or large-scale renovations, that we're not eliminating the possibility to include somatic care and include a full wellness center on down the road, that we can institute some of these programs and think about whether we do want to program in, even if it's a while out, but to make sure that our projects are keeping the possibility open to whatever extent is possible. And then additionally, there's two components here. One is the analysis on the CIP side in terms of here are the factors, here's where there's access in elementary schools, et cetera, et cetera. And the other piece that has to be paired with that conversation is what is being done on the ground to ensure that those families and students are able to access that, know about it, and then how are we going to track whether people are actually using it, whether that is successful. And so, it's all well and good to say that those resources are there, but if we're not making sure that families are able to take advantage of that and that they're actually doing it, then it's talk without action. So I just want to make sure that we are able to bring both of those conversations together also.
Appreciate that, Councilman Mink. I will just mention, as we're forecasting the full CIP, we discussed last week and have discussed before the transition years for like 6th and 9th grade and the access for middle school students, and kind of building on what you said just now, Mr. Hodge, if you had to and you could use a space in a classroom or something to deliver services. We know that there are needs at our middle school level, particularly as kids are coming in and all throughout. So I think one of the things I'd like you can say a little bit now, but I would like to just charge you to come when we talk about the full CIP next year with MCPS. I think we talked about it on the side of the student being wellness teams and the conversation last year around mental health and some of the services that are being provided in middle schools. But, for example, 6th grade was underutilized, and we know that's a key transition year. So I would love us to be thinking on the CIP side about what we might be able to do, or maybe it's not a space issue. It could be just a programmatic issue that we could talk about during budget in the middle school arena. So I don't know if you have any thoughts, but just wanted to raise that.
So one of the things, and space is MCPS, so leave that answer to them. But one of the things, and we wanted to move into middle schools with our school-based health and wellness centers. When we started the program 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago now, it was all elementary schools. When we expanded to high schools, starting with Northwood, and now we have 6 sites. When Councilmember Navarro started talking about a wellness center in every high school, and then which led to our conversation last year where we provided updates on the priority list for high schools. We had middle schools included in that, but because the conversation was only about high schools, we didn't include the middle schools. There are examples of school-based health centers in elementary schools where students have access to care. Then they go to middle school and they don't have access, and then they go to high school and they have access again. And so having that conversation is really important, I think, to all of us, because middle school is an important time to have that access to care as well. I will add one thing to my idea about finding a space in the site. It doesn't have to be all day, every day. I mean, if we picked 3 middle schools and we were there 1 day, 2 days, and then moved to the next school, that they could get the care that they need at a lower price, and we wouldn't be utilizing a space full time. So I think we have a lot of options. I think we can be creative in this, in talking with MCPS and with School Health Services and HHS to figure out how we might be able to work this at a still costs money to hire nurse practitioners, or to contract nurse practitioners, but I think we can do some things in the short term to address some of these concerns for sure.
Great. Well, I look forward to following up with that. Anything else, colleague? Okay. Anything else from staff?
Just to mention that there are updates on the school-based health and linkages learning centers on the last page of your packet. On page 7 of your packet.
We appreciate that. You have anything to say? You've been up here. I'll give you an opportunity. I don't want you to feel left out.
I appreciate that. DJ Conley, MCPS Capital Budget Manager. No, we just look forward to continuing our work with HHS and all the critical services that they provide our schools, our families, and we are up to the challenge of being creative and, fluid program changes. So we look forward to continuing the work.
Sounds good. We appreciate the team. Dr. Bridges?
Council Vice President, let me just add this in addition to what Mr. Hodge stated. We're having those conversations, and the conversations are needed, and HHS and along with his partners look forward to having a conversation with the council or joint committee sessions. Conversations need to be had now at the elementary school level as well. So while we talk about middle school, HHS across all service areas are having those conversations regarding what it looks like at all 3 levels, because data definitely indicate that these conversations need to be had. We need to have parental empowerment sessions in addition to the conversations. So just wanted to share that with you in addition to what we're doing. CIPs are good, but we have to have the program planning and implementation to support and complement those CIP improvement plans.
Absolutely. Got to be based on where the need is. I know there had been some conversations since last week. The idea of like a cluster model had come up of, if you didn't have one at a high school, obviously we can't, it takes time to bring those online, but if there's need right now, could you do it at a middle school that needs it? And you could, like you said, it still might be challenging to get people to come to that from an elementary or a high school to the middle school, for example, but I think that all needs to be on the table as we're trying to provide services across 211 schools. So look forward to continuing the conversation. All right, with that, I think we are adjourned.
All right.